All right, so trying this new camera and see if it's gonna work well or not. Let's try to turn this and get some extra light in here. So anyway, we'll work it all out. Let's try to get a little bit more light here because that'd be so weird if. Okay, so thanks to everyone for joining us here, and so let's go ahead and get to the topic at hand because my good buddy, it's like right behind me, right? This post here. Um, the topic is being coachable, right? And so the way you want to get the best out of training with anybody, right? Especially someone a coach that you like, right? The best way to get the most out of it, like to learn the most techniques, to become the best athlete you can, really is by being coachable. And what does that mean? Basically, so we'll stay here, right? As an athlete, you have to be coachable, and being coachable is a humbling thing. All right, my good buddy John Strickland from American Hook Wrestling on the East Coast of the United States. He just shared that. That was a quote from Rashad Evans, who was a UFC champ. And that was the thing. He was already a talented wrestler, but he ended up training, with I believe in Florida for like his later matches or his later fights, right? But that's the thing. It's like all these people that you really respect, right? All your favorite fighters and stuff, they have coaches, right? And so I'm trying to adjust the light a little bit. So the thing that you want to remember is that so you might already be a very talented athlete. You might already have whatever trophies and whatever belts and whatever, but a lot of times you didn't get there just on your own, right? You got there because you actually listened to somebody. And so sometimes you might have to move or for some reason you end up at a different school and with a different coach. You have to humble yourself a little bit, especially if the coach is, say, if you're in jujitsu and there's like an obvious ranking system. You got to uh, you got to pay attention because a lot of times, especially in catch wrestling, I believe. So we're going to be catch wrestling specific. So in catch wrestling, the more authentic catch wrestling you learn. So say like if you were to train with Roy Wood at the real home of catch wrestling, the Snake Pit in Wigan. There might be some things that might seem different from your average like jujitsu class or whatever, or even your average amateur wrestling class, right? But there's a reason why things are done in catch wrestling the way they are done, even if it seems strange to you from your background. And why is that? It's because catch wrestling always had not only pins but submissions already like baked in. And so that's why catch wrestling does certain things in its own way. And that's why freestyle and folk style and even Greco, they'll do things their way because their rules are such a way where there's no submissions, more geared towards the pin and or sometimes points, right? So that's why things are done differently. And so this kind of reminds me of someone brought up there was like that filmed debate between like was it Henry Cejudo and Khabib and so I think a few other people were there. Sorry if I'm forgetting all the names, but I think Henry Cejudo, who was an American gold medalist in freestyle, was talking about just how wrestling was the toughest, and then I think Khabib kind of countered saying that he would prefer to have a gold medal in judo over wrestling because more country. One of the reasons he gave was like more countries participate in judo than wrestling, and so then the competition must be tougher, right? If you get a gold medal in judo as opposed to freestyle. But the thing is like you have to realize or recognize that when people are saying like wrestling, right? That's kind of just like the umbrella term for grappling styles from all around the world. So in a way, I would probably kind of agree a little bit more with Khabib in this case because because judo only like not only has like the throws and stuff like that, it also has a lot of the submissions, right? So a lot of the joint locks as well, because they're allowed to be on the ground for a little while. So that's why you see like Ronda Rousey and stuff, when she would fight, she was able to get the throw and then um, like try to get an armbar or follow through with an armbar, and she was successful like the vast majority of the time. So, and one of the reasons why she was successful, going back to the original point, is because she was coachable. She might be, you might think whatever you want about her, but at least for judo, it seems like her mom was like this very, very crazy coach. So you don't necessarily have to be so strict or intense as her mom, or whoever coached her with judo, um, because it seemed to have really affected her. So you don't necessarily have to be like so crazy strict because like to get that great of a result. Because I mean, say we have like probably an even better example of high level success with Penn State, right? We have Cale Sanderson, who is the coach of Penn State, and they're winning like as a team. They're even winning our national folk style championships, right? So you're getting individual champs and team champs because they're just dominating. And their practices are more about trying to bring the fun back into wrestling, or bring the fun back into their sport, because this can translate to any sport you can think of, right? So that's kind of the idea, where it's like whatever sport you're going into, you definitely have to, in a way, like how Rashad was saying, it's like you have to be humble. That's how you're going to learn to do it the best you can, especially if you have a high level coach, right? So in the case of Penn State, their coach is an accomplished wrestler, and so you just go along with it. Like, say, even if you were a state champ or whatever, quite often the way the story goes, if you were some state champ and then once you get to university, I mean, you just get smashed in the wrestling room there, because these are like it's just another level, right? Once you get to university level, right? So you got to be humble, right? So in a way, I mean, it's great to celebrate wins and stuff, but in order to like be humble and to basically remember a lot of things, right? So with that's how you can execute even better, right? Because like what happens a lot of times, say even at the MMA school I teach at, or even with catch wrestling, we have our own kind of vocabulary, or our own words, or like our nomenclature for different techniques and strategies. So if you're not learning all these things, if you're allowed to compete, then the coach can't communicate with you effectively, right? So that like basically you're going to slow your growth if you let your ego get in front of like competing. Even if you're really good and you can beat a lot of people and whatever, it's like it's always best to try to humble yourself and learn, right? And that's one of the things what even Billy Robinson talked about, learning how to learn, and all these types of things basically go back to just like getting removing the ego, trying to learn as much as you can, try to do the techniques as best as they can, especially in catch wrestling, because they are unique and they are different from your regular freestyle, folk style, Greco. Um, even though you can do a lot of those techniques from these other styles, they're legal in catch wrestling, but we still have the submissions you have to be aware of. So that's what's going to be going on. So that's why in catch wrestling in particular, you got to be extra coachable, I guess, because we have a totally different style that is still very rare. I know a lot of people are trying to show whatever kind of crazy submission and stuff, and like good luck getting it, because there's so many that are just what we call show holds. So stuff that you would just do in the pro wrestling match because someone's going to allow you to get it, right? You're not necessarily going to get a lot of them on high level competition, whether it be wrestling or jujitsu and stuff, or nogi, right? So that's one of my points. Anybody got any questions? I think that some of the questions are uh, coming in. So Norberto, so folk style versus freestyle. Folk style definitely is a little bit more geared towards going back into what we call referee's position, or like what in jiu-jitsu they call it like well, it's not exactly turtle, but kind of like where you can give your back to somebody. So you'd be kind of like in on all fours, right? And freestyle, it's you get saved by the coach a lot. Where if you just lie flat, you can wait for them to reset and stand you guys back up. That's one of the main differences. Even though they both came from catch wrestling, one evolved in a certain way, the other one in another way. But I think folk style ultimately might give you a better advantage for MMA and stuff. Um, right. Let's go ahead and go down the line here. Uh, so A Lacanophile. So he said he had a conversation this week with someone who said he could beat Conor McGregor in a fight, and he tried to explain how he would to me. And so this guy has had zero training in any martial art. I told him he was crazy. The topic made me think of that conversation. Yes. So maybe not exactly the same kind of thing, but I mean, possibly. I mean, this guy's ego in that story that you wrote is definitely hyperinflated. And that's the other thing um, about fighting sports. I think you might see it in fighting sports more than say like basketball or even soccer or any of the other major sports, American football and whatnot, where you'll see the average guy with a big ego who doesn't train, and he'll say something along the lines where like, "Oh, I can totally beat that guy. I can beat Anderson Silva or whatever," and it's like, no, it's a different level, guys. It's kind of like that what I mentioned earlier, where it's like, yeah, maybe the high school wrestling, it's great, very very good for kids to be doing wrestling, but then when you go to the collegiate level, a lot of people there, like maybe even a lower level guy in college could probably beat the state champ, right? In wrestling, so that's why you got to stay humble if you want to claim that you can beat people up. Go train, because I mean, yeah, there's so many people where um, guys actually earlier this summer, because we're in LA, we're still in kind of lockdown, so our martial arts gyms are closed. There are a lot of people who are training kind of like illegally, where they'll cover the windows and of their like jujitsu gym and all that. So it's kind of irresponsible, because then yeah, people have gotten COVID from doing stuff like that, where even the instructor got a lot of people sick. So no, it's like, so anyway, what was the point? So and ran into someone who was just like, oh, you'll run into a lot of people like when gyms are open, a random person can come in off the street, and then they'll think like, oh, I can just beat up whoever, or whether it be like striking, they'll think they're great, and maybe they'll like maybe they always say they fought on the street or whatever, right? Of course, as perhaps they have, but then a lot of times these street fights are against other untrained people who don't have the discipline to like to actually put in the work to learn all these strategies, learn efficient striking and whatnot. So yeah, maybe it's more of a like you have a higher chance of winning, right? But again, that's like another probably I personally would consider that a very very low level fight. Um, Even though there's a lot of danger involved, and especially if you're on concrete or cement or whatever, very dangerous, because the ref isn't there. You're not, the ref's not going to stop it and all that in case you get injured or if you fall down and all that. Very dangerous, but you get people who might have won a street fight or a fight in their school and all, and then they're all puffed up because maybe they knocked someone out or whatever. But um, don't think that experience is going to translate into professional fighting, professional grappling, whatever. It's probably not, right? You got to put in that effort. Ideally, if you can find a great coach, great, great. That even better, right? Oh man, golden. So thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. So if anybody, so super chat's on, guys. So I might as well remind people of that. Uh, so that'd be great. So Theodore, right now, Theodore's asking if we're working with any notable fighters out of LA. Well, I mean, at Fight Science MMA, we have a variety of guys there. So, I mean, uh, like like there's basically everything's like really small, like because right now we're closed. So that's why in like my videos you'll see me just with like one person, because we're not about spreading COVID or anything like that. We're very serious. So everything is very, very small right now. So maybe wait a little bit and we can kind of show you more training with different MMA fighters there. But we have some good ones there, because not every, I mean, people are concerned. So, it's like less people just in general. Um, yeah, so we have some people who are fighting out of different pro organizations. We also have a lot of amateurs and stuff. I'm hoping that maybe we'll introduce you to some in particular that are interested and like are liking the catch wrestling stuff. So I'll probably introduce you to some soon, and I'd rather, instead of just mentioning names, we'll interview them. Right, one guy in particular I see a lot. So I think he's really, really promising, really good kickboxer. He's been doing 10th Planet for like 8 years or whatever. I think he's like a higher level purple or brown belt. So we'll bring him on later. Um, Let me see. Any other questions? Oh, when did I start catch wrestling? Oh, it's like over 10 years ago now, at least. I had been doing all kinds of grappling and kickboxing. I had won a couple national sanda, or like Chinese kickboxing tournaments in the past, and I'd done even sumo wrestling, and like I'd been doing jujitsu also, and nothing quite matched my experience from, like, since Sanda has a lot of like takedowns and stuff from stand up, right? So it's a good combo where you can get in with your punches and kicks, and then you can take them down, or like you can catch their strikes, take them down. So it's kind of like they had this top down approach, and so catch wrestling was ultimately what I found, because like doing when I was a student at UCLA, we had a lot of different martial arts classes available in our gym, and I would take them all really. So that's why I ended up competing in international sumo wrestling and all that. I ended up getting the silver medal in my weight division, um, but like the jiu-jitsu wasn't really, like, I wasn't vibing with it, so to speak, because it didn't really match this kind of top-down approach. And so then just like I really felt the desire to train in something that had submissions, or so I was trying to look for some other type of grappling system, and just by researching over and over, then eventually I came to catch wrestling. And then again, going back to the main subject of this talk, is that like I'm coachable, right? Or at least I try to make myself as coachable as possible. Where training with Roy Wood, or even like going to Arkansas to train with Billy Robinson, it's like you just do what they say. And then like Billy was really cool because he arranged training partners for me, and the way we trained was that, like, he's like, okay, start wrestling, and then I'll see where I have to make tweaks, right? So that's one of the things where you can make the job of your coach much easier if you go along with what they say. You try to implement what they're teaching you, and then you just allow them to make little tweaks here and there. Same thing with Roy Wood in particular. I mean, you're getting all these uh, instructions and stuff, so you just try to absorb it, right? That's how you absorb the most. If you just remove that ego, open the ears, right? And then try to implement the techniques that they're doing, right? So same thing with regards to the Sanda. I went to China, to the Beijing Sports University. I lucked out because when I was there, the coach for Sanda, at least my coach in particular, he was one of the best professional coaches in all of China. He was doing like a special summer program there, because he's usually based out of Shanghai. And so he went to Beijing, and he was doing a special class there. and this is the coach who would take like the professional teams to compete against other types of martial arts like Muay Thai, or even I believe they came to the United States to fight against some boxers who challenged them. So whenever people are challenging China or their Sanda fighters, usually this coach, Coach Guan, was the coach who was in charge, and especially when they wanted to win, Coach Guan would make sure the team dominated. So he was my coach. He was my Sanda coach. Uh, all right. So let's go ahead and get back to yeah. Let's see any other questions here. Yeah, Eddie Bravo is a flat earther, right? I personally like 10th Planet, or I roll at 10th Planet West LA when it's open. So hopefully we can get back to that soon. But yeah, I really like the approach. The whole thing about it's like all they do is no gi, right? So no gi jujitsu. So there's they're pretty open minded, but that's the thing. It's like so if you want to get good at no gi, you got to spend a lot of time doing it, right? And there's like that other argument where people are trying to say where it's like, oh, you got to do gi to be good at no gi. It's not exactly the case, right? Because really if you get used to grabbing on clothes and doing a lot of stuff with lapels and stuff, it's just not there in no gi. So that was kind of the sarcastic meme that was going around last week, because last week, I think towards the end of the week, there was a very young 10th Planet, a young woman. I think she just turned 18. Her name is Grace Gundrum. So she got her black belt in 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu. And she had a pro match. And I believe it was against like kind of your standard issue IBJJF kind of champ. And Grace was able to beat this woman, very accomplished, and Grace was able to submit her, very quickly. I mean, probably within at least like 3 minutes or 4 minutes. And she basically controlled the whole match and stuff. But then after that, then there was a meme about her saying like, being sarcastic about like, you gotta do gi in order to be good at no gi. But I think Grace not only does 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, I believe she also learns free or folk style wrestling. I believe she's competed in folk style as well. So again, none of that involves gi. So same thing with catch wrestling or wrestling in particular. It's all no gi. So you don't necessarily need to train in gi to get good at that. All right. So thoughts on Khabib's win and retirement? Um, that's good. I mean, really, that's the thing. It's like he's going out on top. There's already rumors that he might just come back, right? But it's really up to him. If you're satisfied, you don't necessarily have to keep on going. I think a lot of times there's some people that maybe they just weren't happy, or they're not satisfied about something amongst themselves, or within themselves. So that'll keep them competing, or sometimes you're just used to it. If you've been fighting for so long that you just kind of want to keep doing it, even though maybe your record's not that great, or over time it doesn't end up being so great. So I mean, it's kind of a lifestyle, I guess. So people can kind of get caught up in that. But if Khabib feels satisfied with what he accomplished, then that's great. I mean, we also had Henry Cejudo like retire at the top of the game, right? So totally fine. Let's see if he stays retired. I saw he was helping out at University of Iowa's wrestling room. So I don't know. Maybe he's going to do something else, or just he likes just helping other wrestlers. Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if but yeah, if you're satisfied, happy with yourself, if Khabib, I think he likes to help out other people and other kids and all that. So maybe he might help out. Maybe he might help out here in San Jose, and with Daniel Cormier's wrestling. He has like the high school wrestling team and all that. Who knows? Who knows? So Robbie from Ripper Catch Wrestling. What was learning from Roy Wood like when you trained with him for the first time? It's difficult. it's tough. He's um, he is different from what you would expect in that, like, say if you've seen say like even video. So for those of you who've never trained with Billy Robinson, and maybe you've only seen some videos of him yelling at people and all that, Billy told me that that's actually his version of trying to coach like Coach Billy Riley. All right, so Billy Riley was the his main coach, and he was the coach of Riley's gym, which now Roy Wood has taken over that spot. So Roy Wood became the successor of Billy Riley, and but they teach differently, right? So Billy Riley was very strict, and also he kind of put down the students a lot. So he would uh, even according to Billy Robinson, he said he could totally make you feel like you're just 1 inch tall and all that, and but in a way he still commanded not only respect, but I mean he got the students to train very hard, and he was able to get the best out of his students. But again, everyone has different coaching styles. So yeah, Coach Roy Wood, it demands a lot, especially with regards to fitness. He's all about wrestlers being in tip-top shape. So he's all about conditioning. So you know, so Robbie was asking about my first time going there. It's like, he's Roy would be happy if he had 2 wrestling sessions per day plus an extra conditioning session. He's all like, so in a way, I think even though he never puts anybody down. He never. It's actually really. He's really a gentleman, and it's really a pleasure to be around. But he just wants you working out like hard. So in a way, that kind of reminds me a little bit closer to maybe Dan Gable, the way Dan Gable would coach in a way, and that like he would always want his students to be like giving like 110% all the time. Dan might. I'm not exactly sure if he would put down his students or not or whatever, but because Dan did so well in like international freestyle, like when he was coaching at University of Iowa, his students did not want to let him down, so they would work out really hard. And so that's kind of the same thing with Roy Wood. It's all about you're drilling, you're rolling, you're wrestling, and you're conditioning. And I believe that's really great. Actually, I tend to be a nice coach too, but yeah, I really want you to work hard during your training time, and then you got to be doing the strength and conditioning outside of that. So maybe have a separate strength and conditioning session, like if you're those of you who have a coach elsewhere, wherever you are at in the world, if you can be doing those different things. So you got your training time, your drilling and your roll, but then also doing the strength and conditioning, and that includes like doing all the stretching as well, right? And then also the nutrition, eating as many vegetables as you can so you can recover fast and all that. Yeah, so Robbie again. So Billy Riley wanted the best out of his students. Yes. And you're working out twice a day most days. That's great. So a Laconophile, was Riley putting his students down part of the pro wrestling culture back then? Where would they try to get you? Where they would try to get you to quit, like stretching people? Um, that's a possibility. It didn't necessarily seem that way so much. It was just really like uh, kind of even the way Roy Wood kind of mentions it, where it's like a lot of these wrestlers who were there who stayed. That's the thing. It's like I'm sure you had a lot of people who went into Riley's gym and almost walked right out. But I think it kind of comes from that, where it's like you want to quickly find the student who's going to stay. So maybe you'll treat them bad, and if they stick with it, then that's when you start investing in them, because you don't necessarily want to invest your time and your effort on someone who's not going to stay. So I think that was one of the things where it's like they really wouldn't teach you anything until you were actually committed and going for a few months before they were like, okay, let's start showing you how to do this right? So that could be one thing, and I think that's probably more of the main thing than a whole pro wrestling type thing. But at Riley's gym, you not only learned catch wrestling, he also trained you for pro wrestling because he wanted you to make a living, right? So from what I understand, he also encouraged his students to uh, learn a trade on the side. So just in case it didn't work out with the pro wrestling stuff, or they got injured or something like that, they couldn't do it, then they had some trade to fall back on. So it's not like he didn't care, right? But yeah, I think he wanted to make sure they got the most dedicated students, and that's probably why he did that, right? Or he was like that, because it's still something that kind of occurs today, right? All right. Any other questions? Okay, yeah. So Robbie was saying, yeah, it was a really hard existence in Riley's gym, and especially Wigan. People did wrestling so they didn't have to go down into the cold pits. Yeah, that was the other thing. I mean, the way the working classes were treated at that time, you is really similar to what you see. I think you can see it easier nowadays, especially if those of you who are in Europe, where it's like you'll see it in the professional football, right? Professional soccer, where it's like you get these teams that they scour the whole globe, right? They'll have scouts who go out to the most remote places to find like the talent, right? To try to get these people from all kinds of countries. But that's the thing. So it's like you'll have these people who are really uh, in and living in not the best situation, and sometimes could be very dire situation. But sports has the potential to get them out of poverty and whatnot. So um, that was kind of the situation for wrestling at that time. All right. All right. Cool. Any other questions? Go ahead and shoot them at me. All right. So main thing, always be humble. I mean, that was the thing that they kind of were talking about with Khabib, right? He always training, and the thing about like, he didn't ditch his dad, and all that stuff. Where it's like, he's talking about being at home, and as opposed to where they mentioned Conor McGregor talking about having expensive cars and this and that. And there was like some interview that was released on YouTube that I saw from RT, right, the Russian news, and he did an interview with children, and he was talking about they're asking about what his goals were, and I guess he mentioned planting cucumbers, and he's hoping he can grow enough and they can ripen for at the right time so that he can get a good price at the market for them or whatever. And um, so that's kind of a little bit of the difference. And I guess I believe what even Daniel Cormier was able to take some of his students there to Dagestan to train and could be paid for everything or whatever. So I think maybe that's kind of a difference, right, with regards to maybe more ego-based activity and less ego-based. And I think it's just like with regards to um, maybe some of the trash talk and stuff like that, kind of diverting into that segment is at least in like the Western societies, right? So UFC and a lot of the Western promotions, that stuff sells tickets. That's why I say, like in Asia, the largest MMA promotion there, one championship, they are really trying to steer away from that, and they're trying to promote kind of like more of the respect, and so that's what they always talk about in their social media, and they show examples of their competitors, like congratulating each other and supporting each other and whatnot. So ultimately, I think that also seems to sell tickets as well. So we have different strategies, but I don't know. I kind of like the whole sportsmanship and all that. I like that because everyone's trying hard. Everyone wants to win, and you can't just be going around trashing everybody. It's kind of a waste of energy. You should be focusing on training. All right. All right. What is the next question? What do you think of folk style wrestlers transitioning to catch wrestling? Will they absorb it quicker than someone who's starting from scratch? So, Robbie, that is an excellent question because the answer is yes and no, right? Because it goes back to the premise of this whole talk where it's like, if you have a big ego, right? And so, like, say, being very successful at, like, say, you're at a Division I college program in folk style, you're going to be a great wrestler, but you're not a catch wrestler, right? And you don't do catch wrestling, you don't know catch wrestling. And but the thing is, you have like the fundamentals to be good at catch wrestling, but you have to remove the ego so that you can absorb the catch wrestling because it's still a different style and the moves are a little bit different. The rules are different, so you need to in a way like just remove those barriers because like a lot of times, at least what I've felt at the NCAA finals. I mean, yeah, these athletes are great. I admit that, right? But I know that they're not catch wrestlers. But like some of them obviously have big egos and stuff, and so those ones might not be the best catch wrestlers, or they might not be very coachable because they already think they know everything. So the answer to your question is yeah, the one with the less ego who's more coachable can be a spectacular catch wrestler quickly, right? As opposed to the one who with a huge ego and thinks they know everything. It's gonna take a long time to teach them a few moves, and it's probably not worth your time if you're the coach. You probably want to just start someone who's starting from scratch who just wants to learn. That's probably you'll probably get them better faster, right? Let me see. So, a Lacanophile, the cultures are different. Americans like to talk trash. Uh, yeah, I think that is a difference, right? Um, and that's kind of funny because then like you'll see in the United States where people will talk about like how they revere like Japan and these their 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 mythology in their head of what they believe um, like Eastern cultures are like, and they talk about how they revere that, but then yeah, they might like all that trash talk and the in MMA and pro wrestling and whatnot. Right? There's a real weird disconnect sometimes with that. All right. So go ahead and keep asking questions. I'll go ahead and give you guys some of the some of the updates. So it looks like I'll probably be on Fight Commentary Breakdowns their channel. So we'll probably be doing a live stream. I will be giving commentary on tomorrow's UFC fight. So that's the one with Anderson Silva, potentially like his last match. So I don't know if you guys saw that last weekend during the match with the Khabib and Justin Gagey. I also was on Fight Commentary Breakdowns channel. We were doing a live stream, giving commentary on that. So I was asked back. So apparently their fans like what I was cooking, right? So I'll be back probably tomorrow, so you can check that out. Their live stream on their channel. I'll try to maybe post a link on the community tab in our YouTube page, our YouTube channel page. Um, so that might be something. If you guys are interested in hearing me talk about the fights or whatever, I can give you kind of a little bit, the catch wrestling perspective. Also, with regards to striking, I can give you the Chinese kickboxing perspective. So like the Sanda perspective on all that. Um, Let me see. So, uh, Robbie again, what was your take on the difference of American culture compared to the United States? Um, so yeah, if you're talking about America, like the entire continent, yeah, you'll see differences. So like you are seeing, especially in South America, a rejection of a lot of like. So the United States, on behalf of our corporations, we put a lot of pressure on these South American countries and governments, and so they want their self determination. So they're really rejecting a lot of our everything United States based, right? So, um, but Chile's even, But anyway, so we've influenced a lot of different countries, and they seem to be fighting back even at the ballot box and rejecting a lot of stuff like that. So there is uh, a lot of say Ecuador and all that. They just won back their like the main political party. They won back the one who's like more about self-determination and helping to elevate the indigenous people there. That one won in a landslide, even though the other side that was more friendly to our corporations, they had a coup and they took over, but then the people fought back, and then they forced them to have an election, and then uh, they basically forced the people who took over to reinstate the old leaders. Right? So we're getting rejected, right? So, but ultimately, it seems like these other countries like they really want to try to basically be in charge of their own countries, right? Um, Let me see. So, a Lacanophile, Ariel Hawani, was talking about liking John Jones' antics because it's pro wrestling esque. Yes. So people get upset a lot of times with the trash talk, but again, it's oftentimes it is an act. But I mean, actually, I graduated from a prominent theater school in the United States, but acting is tiring to me, right? So you got to put a lot of effort into it, right? Like putting on this act, and so I prefer to focus all that energy on training, conditioning, eating right, stretching, whatever, doing yoga, whatever, doing lifting all those weights and drilling and all that. So yeah, I guess maybe that the whole Chinese thing rubbed off on me because I was training in the sports university in China, many years ago, in the early 2000s. So when they were challenged by another country, so say like Thailand's Muay Thai team, they challenged the Sanda team to a night of fights, and they might trash talk a little bit, saying that they can destroy or knock out everybody. Then the Chinese response quite often was like, "We'll see what happens that night." Like so it wasn't really like, "Oh, we're gonna," like there really wasn't that pro wrestling back and forth. Um, but with regards to what Ariel Hawani said, was that like it's a little bit different. I don't think he understands that aspect. Where in pro wrestling, you have to have a good guy and a bad guy, right? So that's called like a heel, right, and a face, right? So John Jones trash talking again, it always makes him the heel, but is there truly a face? I guess maybe he's forcing whoever else he's trying to trash talk to becoming like the good guy or whatever. But a lot of times in pro wrestling, you've already accepted certain people to be the face, and you've accepted certain people to play the role of the heel. So I don't know. I think it's a kind of it's not really a stretch, but I don't think it's exactly precise. Right. I hope I hope I'm the baby face, right? Because trying to be a good guy and trying to spread catch wrestling like the as most the legit version as possible, right? So yeah. So we'll do one more question. So Robbie was asking, what's the difference between the American culture to the UK? I really only spent a really short amount of time in London. Um, so I know way more about Northerners, or at least the people in Liverpool and around Wigan, and they seem to be very nice. Ultimately, very friendly, and which was really cool because they weren't. From what you might hear about London, where it's like maybe they're not as warm and welcoming, right? But in the north, I mean, everyone was very friendly. So um, that was great. And also, this might be a British thing where it's like, yeah, if you, in a way, you kind of have this feeling where it's like if someone who chose to do wrestling, right, they would just do it, right, and they would, if something about training hurt or you're sore or you're achy or whatever, they were kind of more stoic about it, whereas it's like, oh, it's just part of it, why are you complaining, kind of. So I was around people who were more like that. So I'm sure there's all kinds of people in England, all over England. So I just kind of had that impression more so. I have some good friends in Liverpool, and I had a chance to spend time over there too. I don't know. It's really cool area. I would like to maybe spend more time in London to kind of compare. But as far as I know, I understand more northern stuff. Would like to actually go up to Scotland though, maybe next time. I want to check that out. I heard there's a lot of great actually vegan food up there. So I actually heard they have all kinds of cool like comedy festivals and all that stuff up in Edinburgh. So I want to check that out. Um, Oh, so going back to the whole face and heel thing. So Helwani was saying that yeah, Jones is the heel and Khabib is the face. But again, it's like I don't think John Jones would ever have a match with Khabib. I mean, at least now that Khabib is retired and there are different weight divisions and all that. So I don't know. I don't know. It's like it seems like John Jones just wanted attention and yeah, totally maybe doing the whole heel and baby face thing, but I don't know. It seems like a lot of effort to get attention, and without having, with very little chance of there being a match later. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and end it here because we're getting close to almost like an hour. So like we're almost nearing the 50-minute mark. So if you have any other questions, please comment below. Also, if you want to learn the most authentic compilation of catch wrestling, we have our CWA Academy, right? So Catch Wrestling Alliance Academy. You can just go to our website, catchwrestlingalliance.com. You can easily find that. We also have a section with my dear friend who is the lineage holder for the American lineage of catch wrestling. So John Strickland. There's also a section in there that he did when he came out to LA. We recorded a special American style catch wrestling segment for our program. So, and it's also graduated. So you learn the initial like fundamental techniques, and then once you demonstrate that you can do those, then you get access to more advanced stuff. So it is like levels, and so it's similar to maybe what you would understand of as like jiu-jitsu, where they have different belt levels and stuff like that. So should be easier for you guys to understand. And so yeah, if you don't have access to authentic catch wrestling in your area, consider that. All right. Let's see other. Okay, great. So no more questions. So we'll see you next week. But if there's anything you want me to talk about, let me know. I'll probably also be on the live stream for the UFC tomorrow on Fight Commentary Breakdown. All right. See you next week.